Jesus said, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Do not let them be afraid." I know sometimes that's easier said than done, especially during this time of uncertainty. Jesus spoke these words to his disciples knowing that he would be crucified, knowing that they would be uncertain about the world they faced, what they would do, how they would continue. Right now, we're not only living in a coronavirus uncertainty, but we've got high school and college graduates entering into a new phase of their lives. It's an exciting and an uncertain time. But do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not let them be afraid.
Follow the sun, kick off your shoes and have some fun. Get ready, get set, let's go. If we never go, we'll never know. 'Cause you and I, oh yeah, we could fly so high, so high. Moment pass us by, pass us by. I won't let this moment pass us by. I won't let this moment pass us by.
This is our 4th episode of Be the Church, a broadcast ministry of First United Methodist Church here in Victoria. In addition to broadcasting some of the weekly sermons or Bible studies, we try to include interviews with others involved in ministry. Sometimes that will be ministry specific to First United Methodist Church. Sometimes it will be ministries in the community that are making a significant impact. And sometimes it will be interviews with people outside of our community that have interesting perspectives and ideas that I think we can benefit from. Today, we will honor graduates and talk about the presence of the Holy Spirit in every phase of our lives. We'll also talk to Dr. Jenn Graffius, the author of Living Room Liturgies, a resource for family worship as we adjust to this new normal. So stick around, we'll be right back.
Hey, you did it. From kindergarten until now. Muscling your way through every hard moment, climbing your way up all the mountains that looked too high. You've got a lot to be proud of. You were asked for some inner strength along the way and steady character in challenging circumstances. So here you are, leaving your senior year behind, at the edge of new beginnings, a step toward fulfilling new dreams. So as you go, keep a few things in mind. Don't let others get the best of you. You control your emotions, not other people. Life is about more than making money. It's about making memories. It's about making God famous. And don't forget to call your parents. They worry about you. And remember, you are a treasured life. God formed you out of dust for such a time as this. He lights a path for you and holds you in His hands. May you follow the path God has set before you. May doors be opened before you and roadblocks disappear. And may you always be reminded that nothing is impossible with God.
Hey everybody, it's a beautiful day today. I was just looking out the window and I saw Scooter.
Oh boy, oh man, what am I gonna do?
Scooter, is there something wrong?
Oh yeah, you betcha, something's definitely wrong.
What?
I I heard my parents talking, and my dad might lose his job. Oh boy, what am I gonna do?
I'm really sorry, Scooter. I can see how that would worry you.
Yeah, if my dad loses his job, we might have to move. Oh, and then I'd have to go to a new school, and then I wouldn't have any friends. And what about Gus and Molly? What if we get an apartment that doesn't allow pets? Oh.
Now, Scooter, I think you're getting a little ahead of yourself. Maybe nothing will happen at all with your dad's job. Or maybe he'll even get a better job.
Oh, I didn't think of that. But I'm still worried.
I'm going to tell you about a couple of guys who should have been worried. Their names were Paul and Silas. And they loved Jesus, and they wanted to tell everyone about him.
Hey, wait a minute. I've heard of those guys. They're in the Bible. They were put into prison for preaching about Jesus, right?
Right. They should have been super worried being stuck in prison with chains on their hands and feet.
Oh, I definitely would have.
Instead of being worried, they prayed and they sang songs, and the people in prison would hear about Jesus and they would believe in him too.
Wow, that is a really, really weird way to react to being thrown in prison.
It sure is. But God did something amazing to free Paul and Silas from jail. All of a sudden, there was this huge earthquake, and everything started shaking, and all their chains fell off. And then the prison doors opened up.
Did they escape?
No. They stayed, and they told the prison guard about Jesus. And then he believed in Jesus too. What started out as a really scary situation turned out to be a great way to tell everyone about God.
So, I guess I don't have to worry about what's going to happen and trust God instead. I might have a chance to tell my friends about Jesus.
Exactly.
Oh, boy. Oh, man. What am I going to do?
What's wrong now?
Man, how am I going to tell all of these people about Jesus? Ah!
I think you'll be just fine, Scooter. Don't worry about it. And don't you guys worry about it either. Have a great week. We'll see you next Sunday.
Bye!
Today we honor our graduates. Graduation is kind of a rite of passage. In the church, there's baptism and confirmation. There's moving from the children's building to the attic youth room. Now, among your classmates, talking to you graduates, some of you are ready to graduate and get out there. You've got your bags packed, hoping classes will actually start in the fall. And some of you graduates, well, maybe you're not so sure. You're uneasy of the future, thinking to yourselves, maybe another semester at home wouldn't be so bad. Now, I remember leaving for college. I drove the whole 20 miles from my parents' house to Angelo State University. But still, a lot of things that I had to learn to do on my own. Grocery shopping, paying bills. I even figured out that you can wait until you get the pink notice before the city actually turns off your water. See, I grew up out in the country, and I thought one of the coolest things in the world was ordering a pizza. You didn't even have to hardly get up off your couch and people would bring you food to eat. But all of those things I had to learn to do by myself. And I never really did get comfortable going into a restaurant alone, even someplace nice like Burger King. I thought everyone was looking at me like I had no friends. So, maybe some of you are ready for all that, more ready for college than I was. But maybe some of you are still a little afraid of what the future might bring. This was the case in our reading that will be coming from John's Gospel today. Jesus, he was reminding the disciples that soon he wasn't going to be with them like he had been before. Up until then, he'd been with them every day, preaching, teaching, reassuring, doing ministry. They were used to that interaction with him, kind of like you may be used to interaction with your parents. But like you, the disciples, they were about to be on their own. So to comfort the disciples, Jesus promises them that they won't be without guidance. He promises them the Holy Spirit. Hear these words from the Gospel of John, chapter 14, verses 15 through 27. If you love me, you'll keep my commandments. And I will ask the Father, and he will give you another advocate to be with you forever. This is the Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive because it neither sees him nor knows him. You know him because he abides with you, and he will be in you. I will not leave you orphaned. I'm coming to you. In a little while, the world will no longer see me, but you will see me. Because I live, you also will live. On that day, you will know that I am in my Father, and you in me, and I in you. They who have my commandments will keep them are those who love me. And those who love me will be loved by my Father. And I will love them and reveal myself to them. Judas, though not Iscariot, said to him, Lord, how is it that you will reveal yourself to us and not the world? Jesus answered him, those who love me will keep my word, and my Father will love them. And we will come to them and make our home with them. Whoever does not love me does not keep my words. And the word that you hear is not mine, but is from the Father who sent me. I've said these things to you while I am still with you. But the Advocate, the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, will teach you everything and remind you of all that I have said to you. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not let them be afraid. The Spirit of truth that will tie our graduates to Jesus. Now, it won't be like before, but they won't be all alone either. It's kind of like the disciples. The disciples, it's like they were graduating, sent out to fulfill God's will for them. But Jesus doesn't give them your typical graduation speech. Now, I don't know if anyone else remembers their graduation speech. When they were at graduation, you might ask your parents if they remember the graduation speech from their graduation. See, I'm finding it harder and harder to remember things. I don't remember my high school graduation speaker. I don't even remember my college graduation speaker. I do remember that I was running late. I'd been water skiing with some friends. I pulled into the parking lot, put my pants on over my slightly damp swimsuit, slipped on my boots, no socks, put on my robe, and I was ready to go. A friend of mine, Sal, he was running late too. He walked the stage. He just had his gown and his flip-flops on. Anyway, Jesus' speech wasn't the typical, follow your dreams, work hard and you'll go far, be a good citizen type of speech that he gave the disciples. Jesus' pep talk was a little more realistic. I'm paraphrasing, but basically he said, fellas, it ain't going to be easy. You're going to be tested in many ways you can't even imagine. The future will see both joy and disappointment. The Spirit won't predict the future. The Spirit won't even explain it. But the Spirit will infuse you, will enable you to look to the future in faith. Whether it's graduation or another event in your lives, we all experience a little fear from time to time. Fear of the unknown. But the Spirit is there to guide us, to counsel us, to give us peace. And when I got the call from Greg Hackett, who was my district superintendent when I served as a pastor in San Antonio, when Greg called me during appointment season and said, Wade, you're about to get a call from another district superintendent about a new appointment. I just wanted you to know that the call will be coming. Not 10 seconds after I hung up with Greg, Marcus Freeman called to tell me that our bishop would be appointing me to First United Methodist Church in Victoria. Now, if you're watching this online or on television and are unfamiliar with how the clergy appointment system works in the United Methodist Church, here's a very brief snapshot. See, as part of our ordination, we agree to serve the United Methodist Church, not any particular congregation, and we put our trust in God and our bishop to send us to the right congregation and community. Yes, I trust God and our bishop, but it's still kind of nerve-wracking. When I found out that I was being appointed here, I'd never even been to Victoria before. Without question, I was excited, but still a bit nervous. I snooped around on Facebook to find out what I could. I Googled all kinds of stuff about Victoria. I saw that the game warden caught a 10-foot alligator crossing Main Street not long before we were supposed to move here. I tried to keep that little piece of news away from my wife, but honestly, those things were the easy things to deal with. It was all the other uncertainties that crowded my mind. I don't know anybody. Will they dislike me? Will I rub people the wrong way? Will I like them? Which pastors in the church's past would I live in the shadow of? How will I fit in with the church staff? Will my wife like it in Victoria? Will she be accepted by the church? Will she make new friends? We don't really know where God will take us, but I believe that God does surround us with the Spirit of truth, just like Jesus said. When I came here with all these uncertainties, that's when I experienced the Spirit of truth. When I met with the SPRC committee, those were the people I met before I even moved here, and Beryl Bierman smiled her infectious smile. She told me how she loved playing in the church's handbell choir. She told me she was a ding-a-ling. When we arrived, when we got here, the parsonage had been renovated and there were little welcome notes throughout the house and goodies for us to eat. I'd already been meeting with a staff in preparation for our arrival, and I was already impressed by them before even the moving truck came. And the warm and sincere handshakes after each church service made us feel at home. I remember one of our church members telling me after my second sermon, he said, "Kid, you've got guts." At first I wasn't sure how to take that, but he followed it up with, "I like that." And even today, almost a year later, in the midst of this pandemic, I get encouraging emails and text messages just about every week. So as I look back really over my entire life, I can see the Spirit of truth was with me at all times. The Spirit was with me when I went off to college. The Spirit was with me when my mother died, when I met my wife, when there were complications with our son Ethan's birth, when each of our kids, when they went off to college, when I went into pastoral ministry, and with every appointment to every church that I've served, the Spirit of truth has been with me. Generally, when you hear words like truth, we think of just not telling a lie. But truth in Hebrew is associated with being firm, solid, reliable. So the truth, the Spirit of truth, was more than just honesty. In the gospel, truth means living the truth, complying with the will of God, and the Spirit helps us do that. In seminary, I'd often have to distinguish between little T truth and big T truth. Today we're talking about big T truth. When I think of living truth, I realize that, I could have stayed in the business world, or I could have done other work. Cindy likes to say I would have made a good lawyer, as much as I like to argue with her. But the truth is, in order for me to be faithful to the truth, faithful to God, I needed to travel the path that God prepared for me. It took me a while to find that path. Or maybe God took His sweet time in revealing the path when it was the right time. But God was always there. So, graduates, my advice to you is follow truth, live truth, and go to church. God has given us a tremendous support system, set up by Christ and led by the Spirit of truth. God will never forsake you, and God is the source of all true peace. And for everyone else, those that have already graduated, my advice to you, well, it's exactly the same. God bless you.
Love is good, to be loved.
You should be kind like always.
You're open to love anybody that needs it, because a lot of people in this world need to be loved.
That really should be how we all live.
It's when you feel connected to God and you're open, and so open your heart. to God.
I got a message from a buddy of mine, a pastor that lives up in Michigan. He said that he'd finally joined Facebook. Well, when I went to find him on Facebook, I saw that a mutual friend of ours was writing something called living room liturgies for families to worship together, especially during this time of social distancing. I thought that was a great idea. So I set up a Zoom call with her to let the folks here in Victoria know more about this resource. So here's some of my discussion with Dr. Jenn Graffius of Azusa Pacific University.
So actually, this is going to be the 10th week that I've written one. So when all of things started shutting down, it was like all of a sudden, and I realized that everything in life was heading onto Zoom. It was just like our entire world just suddenly went from in-person interaction to these digital like calls. And I started worrying that worship would become this spectator sport kind of a thing. And so I was talking about this with my sister. And so on the first week, we just decided to do our own. So I wrote one up and then I posted it on my social media and said, hey, I've written this liturgy. If anybody wants a copy of it, just let me know and I'll send it to you because it's here. And I got so many emails and direct messages and requests for it. And I was really surprised at how many people were interested in trying to do something in their own spaces. And it got exciting to me because I think that the importance of liturgy is really, it's the work of the people. You know, it's a participatory event to join together and worship. And it's not just, we all have different roles. Even on a regular Sunday, the pastor's role is to preach the word and to facilitate the worship, but it's the work of the people to join together in worship. We're not just watching worship happen. And so I've been writing these liturgies in the hopes that if people are in their living rooms, we've been doing it out by my parents' pool. And it's kind of become this really cool way to continue spiritual formation with my sister's kids. She has a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old. And we've been acting out the scriptural passages, like the narratives and stuff. And it's been really fun to do. I've been writing it really as a resource for people. I just felt like it became like an opportunity for me to offer this as a ministry because I work in a university. And so I haven't been pastoring in the traditional sense on Sundays and that kind of thing. But so one of my friends from seminary, the first week that I wrote it, sent me an email and thanked me for writing it because he was so concerned about keeping their food bank open that he hadn't had time to prepare something to give to people to use on that Sunday because everything pretty much shut down like Thursday and Friday, and then Sunday was coming and there's no church. And so he sent it to his people, and it's been really great because I'm writing it with the hopes that there's enough flexibility that people can modify it to their own spaces. And that was sort of the play on words of having a living room liturgy. My hope is that in the living spaces that we're in, that we remember that we can worship as the people of God. And so for us, it works to do it out by the pool. I'm in Southern California, and it's been great because I'm sheltering in place at my parents' house, and my 89-year-old grandmother lives here. And then my sister and her family come over for worship. We're kind of a quarantine crew. And so 4 generations of us have been worshiping together on a Sunday morning. And that's been great. But I have another friend who lives in Chicago in a studio apartment with her husband, and they're using it. And so I try to give enough instruction to people so they feel equipped to use it in their spaces, but also with the hope that they'll bring their own creativity and personality to it, and that this really facilitates worship for people wherever they are. And so I really would hope that people could use this.
Have you gotten any pushback from anybody thinking, okay, you're making it to where people are going to be too comfortable, going through this and doing it at home, and any kind of pushback there at all?
I haven't gotten the pushback, but I think that we're in an era right now where everybody's sort of wondering what's going to happen when we're allowed to go back to our old ways of doing things. I think there's a lot of comfort in sitting in your pajamas and having coffee and watching the screen for church. Why should we get dressed and go to church together? I don't see it as something that I hope replaces the gathering of God's people. But what I hope is that it equips people in their day-to-day lives. So maybe it's not Sunday morning that they do the liturgy. Maybe there's a time during the week that they want to pull together a small group of people and worship God together. And I think sometimes when you don't have the tools to do that, you wonder if you're allowed to do that, or what it could look like if you gather together. And I've intentionally not included a sermon as part of it, because my hope is that people will read the scriptures and be stirred to ask questions or reflect on the text itself to where their lives become a sermon. I think that our spiritual lives are much more integrated than we even give it credit for, because we associate so much of our spiritual lives with going to church. Mm-hmm. But really, as Christians, I believe that we're called to a life of integrated spiritual living. So these opportunities to have small groups where we worship together, that's a very intimate experience to share that part of our lives with someone. And I think it's beautiful if families can share it. I think it doesn't just have to be families either. I think about some of the clergy groups I'm a part of where if we were more inclined to worship God together in our small group spaces, like how would that transform the way that we live out our lives day to day? So my hope is that this is a tool that equips people for formation and is a reminder that God's presence is with us all the time, not just in the buildings or just on our church video Sunday morning worship.
That's all the time we have this evening. Thank you for joining us on Be the Church. Check back next week at 5 o'clock right here on this station, and join us Sunday mornings online for worship. We're gathering on Facebook, YouTube, and on our website at www.fumcvictoria.com. But don't just go to church. Be the church. God bless you.